Some tokens have been pumping and there's some bullishness as a result. Now, is this a bull trap or is it a sign that the market is finally ready to run? Well, there's no better guest I can have to discuss this as well as some altcoin viewer picks to look at than today with Paul. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. And if you like money and crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. We do want to thank our Patreon members. We have a private Discord that our Patreon members only get access to. We do have also a free Telegram you can join below and a great community. Now, make it rain on that like button if you haven't already, and strap in for the show, and let's welcome Paul from Definity.
It's great to be here, especially after a rally in the markets. We were definitely looking forward to that, and I think your intro was actually absolutely spot on. Will it continue, or is it about to reverse? Well, we shall see.
Yeah, that is the question on many people's minds. In fact, I was a little bit leaning towards one way, but now I'm leaning towards the other, and we'll get into that as we discuss some of the topics for today. Before we get into that, why don't you share with us what's on your mind on the macro side of things?
Right, absolutely. Definitely, this is going to be extremely important for how the market trades for the next few months, and I would say into March. Now, I know important things are happening in March, which you probably want to discuss, so March could be a very pivotal month. But as far as the macro scene has gone, you probably have heard me saying a few times that inflation isn't going to be as bad as was expected because oil prices have come down, the US consumer's been hit, the Federal Reserve have been observing that, and interest rates aren't going to go up as quickly as expected. And all those things, by and large, have been quite correct. Now, I think we're on a pivotal point where the markets look like, how can I put it? Because the dollar has weakened so far, and I've got a chart of the dollar index here for you to look at, because it's weakened so far, and because paradoxically the market is now looking for risk on, we have seen big moves in the risk on components, which is now going to be inflationary. So it's almost like, somebody who's doing a really strong fitness regime and then doing all the right things, and then because they're doing all the right things, they decide that they can just go out and have a splurge. So all the good things that are happening are kind of being countered by the fact that base metals have gone up and precious metals have gone up, and base metals are more important than precious metals because of course those are used in construction. And if I just show you some of the charts just quickly of the base metals, we can see zinc is going sideways. Aluminium broke out. There was a big level here that we were looking for. Inverse head and shoulders, that's gone up. Lead, look at that. It's trading near highs. We've got copper, which is extremely important, and I watch very closely, and we talked about it a few times. This broke a very key technical level and hit a target. You can see how that's going up. So all these prices going higher are inflationary. And what does that mean? That means that we can predict that the next inflation numbers are probably in the US going to look a little worse than the market is currently expecting, because inflation was going down and all analysts on the last CPI number were expecting inflation to be better than expected, which it was. It came in at 6.5, which is what they thought. Even though it had gone down, it was still in line with what their projections were, but it was still falling. So anything that upsets that apple cart a little bit will have the market talking about rates going back up again. Now, I don't think rates are going to, well, there will be increases. I don't think it's going to swing too widely, but the main point is that equity markets are starting to catch wind of this because they're always ahead of the curve. And I think this chart of the dollar is going to see a rebound. So if we use this as a symmetry point and look at this bounce here, I think at least it will bounce up to 105, possibly a bit higher. So that will cause a bit of risk off, which means that people will pull their bets off the table. Now, if we just have a quick look at the interest rate market, 10-year yields. 10-year yields are important because long-term borrowing of mortgages and for businesses come in are expressed in the 10-year bond yields, government bonds, and they've been going down. So actually that looks kind of okay, doesn't it? And that's not upsetting any apple carts. But how much lower will it really go? I mean, it can go, of course, a lot lower. We never say never in technical analysis, but with inflation, gold and silver, check out those charts because I want to get into the picks that you want to look at. You'll see that they've been running much higher over the past few weeks. And so it seems very much like we're going to hit a bit of a brick wall with the inflation story, and it's going to just sort of bubble back up again. And that's enough to kind of make the traders who've seen a good rally take their chips off the table. So the Dow Jones, if I could quickly go into that, has been doing very well. It's ahead of everything else in the US. The Nasdaq's been underperforming, the S&P's in between. So the Dow is coming off, not majorly, but it's coming off, and I think it needs to retrace. The Nasdaq is underperforming. It's difficult to really gauge where that's going to go, but I'm not convinced it's rallied enough to pull us out of this bear market. It needs to really take out this 12,156 point. It could do, but it hasn't done it yet. So there's a bit of a question mark over that. So perhaps we'll see a retracement, and with regard to how that impacts the crypto market, we can talk about that in a moment.
Yeah. Would you mind if we started with the majors and took a look at what Bitcoin and ETH are doing? Yeah,
sure. So, we said it a few times, possibly so many times that I don't dare to sort of guess that the market hadn't gone down when it should have done. That was a big warning that there was going to be a rally. Now, I put my hand on my heart and say, yeah, I could see that. It's still very difficult to buy at that point, even though the signs were there. And that's the thing about the markets. They do repeat, but the times to buy are always the most difficult times to buy. And we got a rally that started small, and then it broke this resistance point in Bitcoin, which actually should be around, I think it was around 1900, I think I said last week. So I think something's moved slightly. So anyway. Oh yeah, sorry. The big level, it was 19666, which it's gone through. But to create a double bottom, it was this level here, 18374. So we can see we created this double bottom. That was the buy point. That was the confirmation that the market had made a low. And boy, did it go up quickly from there, which is great. Now it's run into resistance where it kind of should have done, because lots of upward resistance around here. But this is a very nice impulsive move, which is usually the start of a new trend. So my only caveat is that with the dollar running higher, which I think it will do over the next few weeks, possibly a couple of months, and with equities falling, I want to see how the crypto markets respond to that, because they have been underperforming, and now we've got this sudden lurch into outperforming against other assets, which is great. But I wouldn't mind seeing a pullback and then buying into that pullback rather than chasing it higher. And a fail-safe is if it breaks this downward trend line, where all systems go. So it's a really good sign. It's a brilliant sign. I'm very happy that the markets have rallied, and hopefully I gave the view and the impression that there were signs that this was in a low, but we needed some confirmation, and we've got that confirmation. So this was the triangular constriction that has broken out in ETH. So this is no longer a symmetrical triangle. Again, it didn't break the 2022 low. It didn't even break the November low. We said that a few times, which was our clue that there was something afoot, not to be bears, certainly in the short term, and just to be careful and watch for a squeeze. So we've got that squeeze. Now, the big low for me in ETH, which would take us into some major rallies, would be a break of 2031, which is all the way up here. But I think this 1718, which is here in yellow, for me, if it gets through that, I think we can pretty much say the market's based. So still a bit of a question mark here because there could be a pullback because of the macro themes that need to play out. And there will possibly be some more interest rate rises in the US, but they're expected, and I don't think they're going to be anything out of the ordinary. So the market will just absorb that. And once it's done that, I think we could be looking at a major rally for the rest of 2023 and potentially going into 2024. So we're nearly there.
Yeah. So what's your probabilities on, is this a bull trap? There are some fundamental things that have me a little bit concerned in the background. The biggest one being Gemini and Digital Capital Group, and that there might be some insolvency there. And if they have to file bankruptcy, then Digital Capital Group, which holds a whole lot of altcoins, as well as there's a lot of Bitcoin held, that then needs to get liquidated. Right. Which, if that happens, then the charts would take a huge dive, and this would look like it's a bull trap. Now, sometimes these things work themselves out. We've been through a lot of them recently that did not get worked out because they were too upside down and nobody was going to take a risk on coming bailing them out and shoring up their situation.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's a brilliant question, and it's something that's overhanging the market. But the thing with technical analysis is we say everything's in the price, and the only thing that moves markets is information that we don't know about. So the SBF stuff we didn't know about. So Bitcoin was going down, and we couldn't talk about it because nobody knew. Or somebody knew. But
somebody knew, right?
Somebody knew.
Yeah, exactly. It was priced in.
Exactly. And then when we found out, if you look at the lows, that's where the market base. You could probably go back and find when it was announced, and you were very, very near a low, if not the low, or the low was before it. So this is how markets work. This is why people get so confused about the fundamentals and the technicals. It's actually why I use technical analysis, because you see them
often tell you the true fundamentals.
Exactly. So I don't know the reason because I can't know the reason, but the reason I know will come out, and then when it does, then it'll be too late because everybody has that information. Now, what you're talking about here sounds to me like it's something that could pull the market down, but if you know it and everybody else knows it, then the market will already have factored that in. So the reasons that it's moving...
price spike is coming from something different than what we thought. Have you noticed that many major countries in the past week have shut down their flights for a day?
Yeah.
Starting with the US and then Canada, moving to other countries. That, what I think the truth is behind that is that they were hacked and they had to pay off a hacker, probably to the tunes of millions of dollars for each country. And what would the hacker have demanded that payment in? Likely Bitcoin.
That's a very interesting theory. Very interesting.
What if all these governments have had to go and buy massive amounts of Bitcoin all of a sudden over the past week?
That's a really interesting thought.
Because none of these governments are confirming that they were hacked. However, it doesn't add up. The U.S.'s flights have not been shut down since September 11th, and they say it's some kind of glitch. And that might be believable if it didn't happen to Canada the very next day, and then other countries in succession, just day after day after day.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, no, there is something else here that explains that, and it isn't what they're saying.
Well, I think it's a very interesting theory, and I think anybody such as yourself, people who are in the markets or who actually understand what risk is all about, have got a very good handle on critical thinking and independent thinking, which obviously you have. And it's a very interesting theory. The thing with things like that, unless they confirm it, we can't really know, but it makes sense.
Because that would explain this run, especially on Bitcoin, but then Bitcoin running would create further bullishness towards other things.
But look at, say, for example, Solana and how that's run up.
Wow.
And so, you know, there was some signs that other things were going to move. There's You know, even Cardano's gone up a lot, and we talked about that. I think it could have been last week. You know, a lot of altcoins have moved, so there has been this general kind of, remember we talked about the brick and the elastic band, and it's like you pull it, nothing happens, then all of a sudden the market said, and this is exactly what's happened. It was like, well, the risk on was, there was this big party, and suddenly it was like, who wasn't invited? Oh, it was the crypto guys, right? Here we go. And so it feels like that to me. So
Yeah.
but either way, it doesn't change anything in the sense that there's the rally. The rally shows, for all the people that say it's going to zero, well, it's not. I mean, it's not the reason why I wouldn't want it to go to zero. I don't want hackers to use it, but I'd also, you know, just thinking it through, because it's a very interesting argument. Is it possible that they would want something that's not as traceable as maybe Bitcoin? I mean, would they like want Monero or something like that? Because we know that you can see the ledgers, so
yeah,
technically
Monero would
they could
be
track
preferable these days, right? Because Bitcoin, they have been able to trace it down pretty good. To my understanding, still Bitcoin is the major thing used, but maybe by hackers. But like you said, Bitcoin is like, I don't even know of any off ramps to safely off ramp Bitcoin for bad people, right? And most of those have been removed that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how this plays out, because the shutdowns, that's what it adds up to me. And the hackers often ask for that, though Monero would be a much smarter choice for them, or even ETH. And then they could use whatever, I forget it is, that they can like hide where they send the money to, and it kind of removes the history on it, right? So they can essentially wash the ETH. I don't know if they can wash the Bitcoin. And so we'll see how that plays out. But I'm just kind of playing those factors in the background. But I think you're right on the fundamentals. If Digital Capital Group were to liquidate, there are a bunch of people that are very involved in that should see what's going on, and they would probably be trading accordingly. And if they are, then they're bullish for some reason, because I mean, that's a strong wake up. So I'm curious to see how this plays out in the coming weeks. Yeah, I'm still finding low cap alts that I like, and I like the price at. You know, I'll have some fresh additional big streams of money coming in a couple months, in 3 months, and 4 months. And so if I miss it, these great buys with that money, that's fine. I have tons of crypto already, but boy, would I love to buy some more while things are still cheap.
Yeah, well, this looks like the first stage of something, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get a decent pullback. And if this is going to be a low, the way sentiment was generally, it would be a very significant low, which would also mean that the rally will go on for a long time once it's starting in earnest.
One of my other concerns was when we were looking at the DXY is how straight down it's run, and things don't run straight up or straight down. There's usually a correction, right?
Yeah. There was many people, you know, sort of shouting from the rooftops that the trend in the dollar was going to be up, and it was going to go 120 and beyond, and all that. So the market got very, very long. Everyone just bought, you know, as though it was a done deal. Rates are going up, you know, this thing's going to the moon, and they're ahead of the curve. But that's the most dangerous time. And as we've talked about again on the show, and you did it yourself with the property market, it pays to be contrary. And if you go with the herd, it can be dangerous. So, but this is also a very interesting factor when it comes to how trends reverse and how they then move up, because when you're watching a trend go up, they say the market rises against a wall of worry. And so if there are elements in the background that are keeping people out because they're scared of whatever's happening at Gemini or whatever else might be happening in the future, or whatever other bad information is coming out, the most important thing is to look at how the charts are reacting. Like, so if there's bad news and the market comes down a bit and then goes up again, that's telling you something. It's telling you that the market's actually focusing further out on some really good news, and therefore that becomes an even more bullish factor because it's ignoring the bearish move. That's the definition of a bull market. The market ignores bearish news, sorry, and it responds positively, almost exaggerated in terms of bullish news, and vice versa. All bearish news in a bear market sends it crashing, and bullish news, it just has a little bounce and does nothing. So that's very interesting what you're saying about. I don't look at the fundamentals very much. I would normally ask Manu if I wanted to get a deep dive in. He knows a lot of stuff, and I really respect his opinion, as I do yours. And so I'd be asking you guys. But for me, the way I operate, I'd just say, really interesting. I'd lock that in. Bad news. Let's see how the market reacts to it. Can they get this down, or is it just going to consolidate for a little bit and start pinging up again? And that will tell us something very interesting about the future.
Yeah, it would make sense to me that we see, because right here, it's right around the 50% retracement on the Fibonacci for the DXY, right?
Yeah.
And it would make sense that it bounces up, which will usually send equities, but also crypto, in a different direction. That would take equities and crypto down. But we'll see how that plays out, and if it plays out that way, because it's run really strongly down. Like, that is really steep. See all these steps it had? We had a tiny little step here, tiny little step here, pretty much straight down though.
Yeah.
And curious. Yeah, I'm curious. I've just been around for so long that when I see a trend like that, I'm like, okay, there's usually at least a bounce. I think the overall trend on the dollar is going to be down, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it bounce up a little bit.
I agree.
Get some bullishness out of the market, because one of the reasons why I'm more bearish is so many people are going bullish. And that's my concern, is that so many people are like, okay, yeah, we're off to the races. And maybe it's only 40%. Maybe 60% are still bearish. It was like 20%. And I was more bullish when only 20% were bullish at all. So it's kind of got me questioning the direction of which way it's going to go here. And I'm leaning like 60%, that maybe even 70% bearish and 30% bullish just in the short term. Long term, I'm very, very bullish. Even medium term, I don't quite know, but like in the next year to 3 years, I can't see that we won't have another massive run in that time frame.
Yeah, I'm expecting the inflation story to hum along, but there to be a kind of equilibrium of where interest rates are. And I agree. I think this once we've got this correction out of the way, if we're going to see one based upon risk off for a short term, then it could be a very powerful moment. And so we're getting ready for a big bull market, which is not, I guess, what sentiment's like out there. I think people are still very, very wary and don't really want to get involved with crypto as much. So it just shows you've got to be in it for the long term.
Yeah, whether it's right away or 2 or 3 years from now, like relatively, that's a very short time frame. And what's crazy to me is some people don't even have the patience for that. They think it should happen sooner, and they don't realize that's the soonest it happens in any market out there. There's nothing else that has as big of swings as crypto does. That's also on such a short timeline too, that like from top to top, sometimes it's 4 years from one peak to the next peak. That is a really short timeline. Real estate is often 16 to 20 years. I don't know what the cycles are for gold and other things, but the swings on that aren't even very much. And so really this is an area that I love because of the volatility and because of the short timelines. Let's jump into some viewer picks. The first viewer suggestion is a big cap that has been in the news a ton lately, and that's XRP.
Yes, indeed.
And, really their battle with the SEC, I think everyone in the crypto community should give XRP a great big hug for fighting it out with the SEC. I think they've done us all a huge favor.
Yeah,
And thank you to the XRP community for helping push them along and really strengthening their resolve, because I think they've done the world a favor.
yeah. I know a kind of split view between people who really like XRP and believe it's the future, and other people who don't and are less bullish on it, shall we say? But I mean, when it comes to Ripple, I've seen adverts on the London Tube for Ripple, which I haven't seen for other cryptocurrencies. So that was interesting. Thought, yeah, so they got some advertising power. In terms of the chart, it's been humming along in this range since June last year. It had its rally that looked like it were again going to go off to the races, but that failed, and it failed in a very important resistance area. And as we know, everything turned down as well. So the 55 cents area is the key area for this. It needs to get through that. But if it does, look what we would have made, a massive double bottom. So it's stage one. It needs to break out of this resistance at 41 cents. So that's tripwire one. If it gets through 41 cents, then we're going to be targeting this high around 54 cents, which it should really go for if it can get out of this 41 cents. And if it takes that out, then it would be going for the main upward trend line, and it would look very bullish indeed. So I think it will do it. It's just a question of when. So for the moment, it's still hovering below this resistance line, below this resistance as well. And I can't say it's a buy until it gets out, really. So 41 to 42 cents is my sort of speculative buy point, and it's not there. But it's a very close watch, because it's very close to it. Could do it this week, or it may take another month or two. It's just not clear. But
so for you, it's just a wait at this point. Would you just say?
Definitely, yeah. For me, it's a wait, but it's a wait with strong interest.
Yeah, a watch closely wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how the SEC case completely turns out. There's some community members that are very up to date on XRP, and one of them I've had a chat with, and I love, gosh, some of the audience members are so brilliant, and he knows so much about XRP and some other things, and it was fun discussing it with him, because he keeps up to date on all the intricacies, right? XRP is a project that's been around for a very long time, and their technology could really change banking and update the SWIFT system, which is like 30 or 40-year-old technology that would remove overseas, sending money overseas, like make it so much cheaper and so much faster. So I'd love to see their technology come to fruition. Let's take a look. For me, it's just, I don't own any XRP. I have in the past. It's been a long time on this chart. It would definitely be a wait for me. I would be waiting. If I traded XRP, it would be trading a breakout. The cap is too high for me. The market cap is way too high for me. It's outside the parameters of what I'm looking for, except for a breakout trade. If I have some free cash and I see a breakout coming up, I usually jump all over that.
Yeah, I think the airline technology is just what you're saying about the banking. I think they're pretty old as well. So
yes.
Subject to, the sort of potential attacks that you've been mentioning, and I think it just makes a case for cryptocurrencies, because obviously the actual blockchain is immutable, and it's very hard to attack, and that's that's what you want in software. That's what you want in a booking system. You want it to be completely robust. So what a great solution. And that could be why, just thinking about it while you were talking about the banking system, could be why things have suddenly jumped up, because they've seen a bigger use case. So we shall see. But yeah, I think it just adds to the positive.
That's really a great point. The security in the blockchain is amazing, right? And the security of some of these networks, some networks get hacked because of code vulnerabilities, and it's still early days. As those get hardened, it could power a lot of things, right? So I think what was getting hacked was the messaging systems to pilots. And so the reason they grounded all the airplanes is that they had no ability to send messages to the pilots. And so probably they were worried that maybe there might be some kind of attack or something. And just out of an abundance of caution, I think that was the vehicle of what was likely being hacked, because supposedly that's what the problem was. And so, yeah, it is a old technology that was probably shared a lot of similarities across all the different countries. So, yeah, cool. Let's look at the next one. What have I got?
Is it DRF?
Yeah, Drife, which I had the founder on, 2 weeks ago, maybe 2.5 weeks ago now. Fantastic chat. Is trading very interestingly.
Yes. So I think we can update this this trend channel here that we had before, and obviously we've talked about it a few times. And so this was a great breakout, like fantastic, and it's pulled back. It's obviously come a little bit further than I would have liked. So in a consolidation, the market goes up, comes back, hits support, and then rallies again. This has just sort of worked its way down in this channel, which seems to be working very well to contain the market. Sadly, it is a downward channel, and it's broken this trend line. So I think we've got to be a little bit wary as to why it is still in this, in this corrective phase. But I think it should find support. Well, it hasn't found reversal support as yet. It's just found sort of range support. But this area here is of great interest to me, and I like to see a certain amount of symmetry. But I think this is where it's coming back to. So that for me would be my, like, let's stick a little bit in there and see what it does. So this is usually the start of a bigger trend. So a very sharp, impulsive move. This is the corrective move. Once the correction's over, we should go into another impulsive move. And obviously it's not triggered yet, and it seems to be trading very much. Oh, hang on a minute. Let's just look. After all that, we can see that this stopped trading on the 22nd of December, so it's not updated. Let's have a look at another one. Have they reissued the coin perhaps in another? No, that's the old one.
They haven't reissued the coin. It is fairly low cap, and sometimes
it's not DRF. Could it be?
Yeah, DR. Well, that's dragon fruit.
Yeah.
So that is something else.
Yeah.
Drife is the name of the company.
Yeah. Right. Let's see if we can get it on. See if we can get it on this. Nope, doesn't like it.
That Drife USD wrap, that might be it.
Okay, let's try that. Yeah. Okay. So look, actually, it's pretty much confirmed what we were saying. It's come back to that support area which we were looking at, and there we go. So it's done that, and it's finding support, which is great. So I would say, putting my very speculative hat on, that this is a little buy here, because that was the zone where I was expecting it to find support. I think this is a breakout trade. It's trying to reverse this trend and form a low. So it's come back a little further than I would have liked, to be honest. I would have liked this to have turned around a bit quicker. But to be fair, the whole sector's been under a bit of a cloud. And this likes to do its own thing as well. So around here is a buy zone. So I'm going to say it's a buy. I'm going to say if it gets below this 1/6 of 1 cent, I would be bailing out. And so very small loss for me. I wouldn't let it go too far, because I don't mind re-entering it and buying it as it's going up. I wouldn't even mind waiting for it to take out this resistance here again, because for me, crossing through there would show that there'll be a lot of strength. But having a nibble and then adding to it if it breaks that is not a bad strategy as far as I'm concerned. Other people have got to decide what they want to do. But yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, the chat I had with the founder was really bullish to me long term. Like they're competing with Uber. We've talked about this one before. They have a different type of model. The reason they have a token is that if you're going to open a franchise, so Uber doesn't really have franchises. And Uber charges drivers a percentage of what the fare is, right? So Uber might make 55%, and the driver makes, say, 45% of the fare. What Drife is trying to do is let the drivers make 100% of the fare, and the drivers just pay a monthly subscription or a weekly or even a daily subscription to use the Drive service. So say they only drive like 4 days a week, they might make sense just to do a daily subscription on the days they drive. But if they drive pretty regularly, they do a monthly subscription. So say they pay $200 for the monthly subscription, but then they get to keep 100% of the fares that are charged for their drive. Other than I'm not sure how the franchise owner over the local area. So they set up with franchises so that somebody has a vested interest. So say that this expanded to New York City, and New York City is big enough that maybe there's 7 or 10 different franchises within New York City for the different parts. So you would have that franchise determining what the rates are going to be roughly, right? What the fares roughly are going to be, but yet the driver makes my understanding 100% of that, or makes most of that, and then a little bit goes to the franchise, because the franchise has maybe the franchise gets a percentage of the subscription is what it is, because the franchise has to have a way to make money. But for the franchises, in order to open up a franchise, they have to stake a huge amount of Drive. And so that's what will drive the demand for the token, right? It's really interesting token structure that I hadn't seen used before by any projects. And I like the model that the drivers get to keep more, because I think the current ride sharing services take too high a percentage of what the fares are. So we'll see. I mean, I liked the juicy prices, the really, really, really low prices that we were at. It's still at really low prices. It was just at really, really low prices. And I bought some more while it was at those lows, and I was hoping to get even more, and it popped up, and I was like, dang it. I mean, often people are excited when it like pops up. In this case, I'm like, no, not yet. But yeah, I can't say I'm disappointed. I do have a huge bag of Drive. And really glad that the CEO came on and gave us an update, because a lot of this is happening in India. So it's really hard to get news on where the company's at and what things are happening, especially since it's still such an early stage project. And so a lot of your bigger like news sources, they don't cover the smaller projects yet till they become bigger. So yeah,
what a market to be in India. I mean, if it takes off there, it's like, oh
yeah,
sweet. Incredible.
Yep, it's a good market where ride sharing is a huge thing. So for me, well, at the current price, I'm interested to see what it does. I think you're right. It's going back to that, and it's either going to break up from here, or maybe it already has and it's just retesting. Or it'll break below. So it's not a bad point, actually. If I had some more available cash right at present, I probably would buy a little bit right where it's at, even though it's not quite at that line. And then if it broke down, I would wait for it to go to some support there, and I would buy some more. All right. Of course, I'm really biased towards this project. I like the founder. I think she's smart. I like what they're doing. A lot of the stuff I'm in is in higher risk alts. Like, these projects can fail. Things happen. Regulations come in that totally bury something, especially when they're this early on. They don't have massive funds to help counter regulation that might seek to bury them. Regulation pushed by their competitors, who now have hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars to push things like that. All right, let's take a look at CHZ.
CHZ or Z.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way the Americans say Z is so much taller than the way the English say it, I have to say. So
I just like the sound of Z, right?
yeah, Z sounds great. It doesn't, Z is how we say it, which obviously sounds not as cool. But is it this Chili's? Because that
Yes.
last one. Right, let's have a look. Okay. So what have we got happening here? Little inverse head and shoulders that kick this move off, which is nice. Very small move though. Small pattern, small rally. Big picture, we are range bound. And I do remember talking about this and looking for I think we're still in this consolidation, if I'm going to be honest with you, because if we look at the short term, it's quite exciting because it's starting to rally. But if we look at the big picture, we're still, unfortunately, in this bigger range. Now, I think this should give way to an upward trend. And the reason why I think that is more from a psychological point of view, that the rest of the market has been so bearish and it's formed a higher low. So we've got this low here, which was formed last year, and then we've got this higher low that's forming here, even though sentiment broadly is much more bearish. So that's a little flag that's that keeps us on the upside. Also, we could look at this as a trend from here, and it's above this main trend line as well. So it's still getting caught up in this broader range. So we haven't got what I would say is a nice clean upward trend. It's coming with caveats. This resistance point up here at 16 cents is a big barrier that I'd be keeping an eye on. And obviously I've got to take into account the fact that we might be looking at a reversal in terms of the macro position. But if I was to shut my eyes and buy it and put a stop below this trend line, it wouldn't be the worst thing. I think I'd like to try and find something that perhaps was getting ready to do something like this, where you get this acceleration when it breaks out. I would possibly want to wait for that, but I'd also have sympathy with a bullish view developing here, given that we've got a higher low. So for me, it's just not quite gone over the line for a buy, but again, this is one that's definitely worth watching. So it's a wait, but an interested wait, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, Chili's is an interesting one. It is related to essentially international football, like some NFTs related to it. I passively followed it for a while. That market cap is too high for me to be interested at this point. I had considered getting some back when it was really, really cheap. And it blasted off like everything else did early 2021. So like a token that's not totally dissimilar is OMI, which went absolutely parabolic like this too. OMI's corrected more than Chili's has, but Chili's has continued to grow because there's a huge international football community, and they really made a solid bet on building NFTs related to football franchises. So football is a little bit harder than, say, American sports, because a lot of American sports, they're part of like one group, whereas football, there's a lot of different leagues and a lot of different licenses that they have to get. So sometimes they'll get one football club at a time, because they can't like sign one deal like you can with the NFL and get all the NFL teams. With football, you have to get each franchise, right, or each football club. But they have some big ones, right? And football is one of the most followed sports in the world, like international football, not American football. Well, American football is big. I think international football is much, much bigger, and football is a huge thing, international football, or as Americans say, soccer, in almost every country, right? So Central and South America, they don't watch NFL games. It's all about, if you go all you hear, you walk down the street and you hear goal. And all of Central South America, much of Europe, Middle East, like a lot of football, right? And some big moves being made by the Middle East and Saudi Arabia, giving, what's his name? This, in my opinion, the second biggest football player behind Messi. And I'm biased, people might have this differently, but he just got a contract from like Saudi Arabia, like for like $200 something million for 1 year. So he's moving to Dubai or something for a year and getting paid crazy amounts of money. I actually know somebody lives like a couple of houses away from where he's going to be living. Anyway, so yeah, football is big, and so Chili's has done good. I mean, that was a good bet, and it's done absolutely incredible.
I've got something funny, an anecdote to tell you about. When
Yeah.
I was teaching technical analysis in the City University in London in the 90s, and somebody asked me, would there ever be £1 million player? And it was like, and I said, well, yeah, I think so, because the trend is up, and because they were relating it to football. And I sometimes think back at that, and what we're heading towards is £1 billion player. I mean, that was the equivalent at the time. So of course it sounds so silly, doesn't it, that we'd have £1 million player, but it was the equivalent of saying £1 billion player.
What wasn't Pele even $1 million player way back in the days? Football has been one of the highest paying sports, although NFL and NBA, like, I think might have run ahead of it for a bit, but I think over the past 40 years, but probably only the top players like Pele and then Maradona and then some other people, like very few people, but they got paid such high amounts. Because I think I had read that Pele made over $1 million.
Yeah, that may have been advertising and sponsorships and things like that, possibly.
You're
But
right.
this was like going from one football club to another, and
got it.
and yeah, a contract. So
now
yeah,
we have one that's non-advertising, because the advertising he makes on top of that
exactly.
must be crazy. But like, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you watch the World Cup?
I did. Yeah, I did watch. I watched the final. Yeah, it was a crazy World Cup, but it was great fun.
My brothers watched it. I didn't make it, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it was the most epic World Cup of all times." And as they were telling me about it, just them retelling, I'm like, "Holy cow, you're kidding me!" Oh man, edge of the seat. This guy out of France is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, Messi. Yeah, it's yeah.
Well, he gave Messi a run for it. What's the guy's name out of France?
Sorry, Mbappe. Sorry, the guy Mbappe is the guy from France. Messi's obviously Argentinian. Yeah, no, it's just great. It's just great to watch such fantastic players. But sadly, the England wasn't in it. But that's not a surprise.
England always has a fantastic team. Obviously, U.S. and Canada, they're just not up there when it comes to international football. Like, they almost never are. They're lucky in the top 20, I think. But England is up there, right? That they have some football clubs that, at any given 4-year World Cup could take it.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, all our great players are sort of international, aren't they? So, I don't know why it is that we can't finally just do it, but maybe one day.
Right.
But we're all dreaming of it. But,
right. Yeah. Well, let's look over at ICP.
ICP. Okay. ICP. Right. So would this be internet? Is this the Definity? We did look at this, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So it doesn't give me the USD ICP. Right. This is gonna have to try and
internet computer.
Let's try this one. See, it's difficult to know what these are here. Supply, okay, Bitcoin, dollar. Well, that's dollar. Let's try that, but that's not updated. Let's try that one. The first one, I should have just gone with the first one. I always go for the second ones because the first ones don't usually work. So I think this is one that you were looking at. I think you were quite bullish on it. I think I was a bit more cautious because going back a few weeks, we would have been around here and it potentially forming a base, which it now looks like it's done. So it's broken through this resistance here, which actually we could probably extend back to here as well. So this zone at $4 between $4.50 to $4.65, good resistance for it to break out, and you can see it surge through that area. It's still, if you take a big step back, you can see that it's been on a long downward trend. And therefore, I think we need to be a little bit cautious, because normally reversals, when they're reversing a big trend like this, they are, most often they're a bit bigger. That doesn't mean it can't just keep going up, but it usually means that the market usually will come back. So it's more normal for the market to spend a bit longer forming a base, given that this has been a major downward trend. But it doesn't have to. I mean, there's no rule that says it's got to come back before it goes up again. But I like the fact that this is a impulsive move, and so it's a nice strong move indicating a kickoff of a new trend. So the fact that it's accelerated like this very much fits the bill for the start of something much bigger. The only slight caveat is there's potential overhead supply, given that this trend has been so negative for a long time. But I think the conclusion for me is that I do think it will retrace, given the broader macro scenario, but I actually think it would be still an interesting one to be long, because it has broken out, it's given the signal, and there's a bit of this temptation for people out there who've been long and sitting on losses, perhaps now that it's come into zero, like flat position, to take their money off the table. So I think we might run into a little bit of that. But if it does retrace, I think it might be worth picking some up without knowing what the market cap is or whether there's something better. I would say it's doing all the right things, and whilst it's above this 4.6 to 4.5, $4.50 area, I'm quite comfortable with potential upside. I would say that this area at 5.7, 5.8, that's big resistance there, so just watch out if it struggles. But equally, any break of that, and it gets even more exciting. So I would suggest that it'll go up a bit, retrace, and then come back again and go for another breakout of that. So picking it up on a pullback might be an idea, a strategy to look at. So for me, I'd say it's a buy here, because it's above its trigger point, and whilst it's above 4.6 to 4.5, I want to go with that trend.
Yeah, I have an interesting story about Internet Computer. When it came out, everybody was talking about it. Oh my gosh, this is the biggest thing, and oh, are you buying it? And I was like, I never heard of it prior to a week ago, and now it's the biggest thing, and it came out, and look at where the market cap was when it came out. 53 billion is what's reflected here. It might have even been higher, because sometimes coin market cap misses like the first little period. And I was like, oh my gosh, number one, the market cap is so high for a project I hadn't even heard of prior to a week prior to that. And all of a sudden it's the greatest thing, and 90% of people are talking about it, and whether you're buying it, I said, no way. So I didn't even dig based on those factors alone. I was like, no way. I'll wait till it gets very boring, and then I'll revisit it. If I wasn't biased towards low market cap gems, and I was looking for more of a blue chip portfolio, it would highly be on my radar right now. So I like so much more. Finally, the trend is signaling some bottoming. Maybe it corrects a little bit from this, but probably this huge downtrend is down. Also, way back here, so few of the tokens were in supply. And now you have more than half of the tokens in supply. So a lot of the tokens have been vested. And so this was like the period that I was waiting for. Now, if it fit within my criteria, or I was looking to get more blue chips, I would be researching the heck out of this to see if I wanted to hold this longer term. It just falls outside my parameters, so I'm not going to put in that research time to determine if I want to hold this long term, because it just falls outside my parameters. The market cap is at 1.5 billion. A lot of the stuff that I'm buying, the market cap, there's only a couple that the market, like I have Cardano, which has a higher market cap, but that's the only one above $1 billion market cap. Then I have some Ecomi, which is normally outside of the market cap I usually hold. I just like the fundamentals so much. Everything else that I'm buying is usually below a $40 million market cap, and often 10 million and below. So this falls way outside of that. But not everyone is like me with my risk tolerance of the really, really risky stuff. I like where this is for a buy generally, based on the charts and like where things are at. But if I were to be buying it myself, like I like where the chart is at, is what I'm saying with that buy. But if I were going to buy it, I'd research the fundamentals deeper and make sure I like the narrative and the team for a longer term hold to hold through the next major upswing. So that's my thought on that one. Let's take a look over at one more. Let's look at Stratos.
Sure. Yeah. So whilst you were talking, I just got the chart up to have a look at it, and I don't think we've spoken about this one, so it's nice to get a fresh pick. So thank you for that. I can see that this has been a bit of a hellraiser. It's been up and down, a bit of a roller coaster ride. So I think you need pretty much very strong kind of buy and hold courage to go with this, because these are some big swings. So either you got to buy it and just shut your eyes and not look at it, or you've got to be very, very active with it. Anything that can swing like this from nearly $1 all the way back down to 30 cents and then back up again and within a few days or relatively short space of time is, that's crazy vol. That really is crazy. But within that, we are seeing an upward trend. So I would suggest that this is trying to go up. The central line here for me is a big pivotal point. So it's half the retracement. So that's why I think we're seeing so much resistance around here. So I would like to see it break through that, but I think it will. Now, how it breaks through it, I'm just not sure. Like, will it go up? Will it come all the way back down here again to 35 cents before it goes up again? I don't know. But the signature of this is telling us that it's very volatile. And because of that, we have to sort of be a bit more careful and potentially just play with smaller amounts. But for choice, given this chart, given that it's pressing up towards this resistance, I would also say it's a buy. I think it's actually quite interesting, given at the top of the show I was saying the macro position probably supports a bit of a correction, that most things seem to end up being a buy. But this one is a very interesting one. And I'd like to hear a bit more about what they do in order to get a bit of color. But from the charting point of view, it does look very interesting. So I'm going to stick it on the buy rack for now, and we'll see what happens.
I have not followed Stratos closely. The market cap is, wow, surprisingly down where I like it. I hadn't seen that happen. Last I looked at it, the market cap was much, much higher. No. This is down in the region of where I like it to be. I have never followed this one that closely. Data mesh, the first decentralized data architecture. I did look superficially into it a while back. It provides scalable, reliable, self-balanced storage, database, and computation networks off there. There's a solid foundation for data processing. So this is one of the areas blockchain's trying to go. And there's a lot of companies fighting for this. And it'll be interesting to see who wins. And it's kind of like the data storage. So think of like Amazon Web Services. But what if you could make it immutable? So like if a server went down, like other servers would have it, so your service never goes offline. Say they make it, find a way that the cost is a lot cheaper than Amazon Web Services. So you have better, like your network won't go down services. You have better cost. And so there's some companies trying to go this way. I think that's in the area where Stratos is going. As for the charts, I like where it is. That narrative I've seen really struggle, and that doesn't mean other things that it can't do well within that narrative. It's just not a narrative I'm following super closely for a while. I did follow it really closely about 18 months ago, and I was investing in something with a smaller market cap than Stratos, and The technology hasn't gone very far. One of the competitors has signed some deals, but it's just still struggling. The one that has signed some deals is Arweave, but their price has corrected significantly as well. So they peaked out at the end of last year. They've come way, way down. Arweave's made some significant deals. So Stratos is a lot lower market cap than that. And what happens is if a lot of momentum comes towards this sector, then the low market caps, like a lot of momentum. So say Arweave starts taking off, but if Stratos has a decent team or a good team and a strong narrative, the lower cap ones often pump in bigger multipliers. So we'll see how this happens. Like obviously had a big peak in November, went all the way to like $5. It's down 90%, or not quite 90%. It's interesting. Yeah, we are seeing on some of these technicals that things want to run. And we saw this interesting thing happen last bear market, which I think for the past history in crypto, the market was strongly, strongly tied towards Bitcoin performance, which was impacted heavily by the halving. But in the future, as some of these technologies really start to take shape within their industries, for example, blockchain gaming really taking off, you will see less ties to Bitcoin and more ties to that specific industry and whatever new deals are happening there. So they can totally run on their own. Like one of the games that I've been participating in their beta testing for is Illuvium. In fact, maybe we can pull up and look at what Illuvium's token's doing. Now, they're kind of in the news a lot right now because they're alpha. I don't remember if it's an alpha or beta, but it's not the actual version yet. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. ILV. Now, their market cap is 100 million. So outside the range of a lot of what I'm interested in, but I'm highly interested in this one because I think their gaming is going to their game might change the world. So I participated in the Axie Infinity sale, and I put about, like their initial land sale, I put about $4,100 into it. Apparently I sold way early because I sold it about $400,000, which was 100x. And it went all the way to where if I still had everything riding and sold it exactly the top, it would have been about $12 million. Why did I invest in Axie Infinity? Well, at the time the game wasn't out, so I didn't realize how boring the game would be, but I knew it wasn't my game style. Now, boring for my type of game style. So I played Axie Infinity when it finally did come out, and I was like, not my game style. But the project did really, really well because this idea of ownership and you being able to earn something that was then tradable, and because it took time invested in that to earn that, there was a value to that on the marketplace, and people were selling that for money. And so it really created the first play to earn game. Now, the overall model was flawed, and it was kind of contingent on hyper growth coming in order to hit really big numbers. But the project made incredible revenues by just charging a percentage of transactions that happened as people bought and sold stuff to each other. And it hit numbers as far as revenues that most games don't hit. And it became the 10th highest played game at the time, right? For a brief period of time. But still, I think they made like $1 billion in revenue, which is crazy. And the game wasn't even fun to play. Illuvium's coming forward, and I got here Illuvium 0, which if you have the land, you can play the alpha. And this is Illuvium 0. And this is one of my plots of land, and it's a city builder like Clash of Clans. And this has resources here that will interact with more of a first-person shooter / Pokemon type auto battler game, where kind of like Pokemon, how you have your Pokemon battle each other. In Illuvium, you can capture Illuvials and you can have them battle together, and that's called Illuvium Overworld. What I just showed was Illuvium 0. and they'll interact together because this is going to be on the blockchain. And so as you earn resources in one, you'll need them for the other. And that is an amazing concept that as the marketplace opens and these things are tradable, you can actually exchange things that other people value for, say, ETH or something else that has a tangible value. In other words, the play to earn revolution and evolution continues, and I'm really excited about where this can go. And so gaming will have its own life cycle. Maybe data storage has its own life cycle. Say, as the technology gets really good, and say a major corporation is like, wait, you mean to say you can save me 75% over what we're paying Amazon Web Services, and the system is more secure and can't go down, and we can keep it there for forever? Well, yes. And as those types of things happen, that can run completely independent of its own, a way different than, say, Bitcoin. And so as these different industries, DeFi could run independent of whether gaming is doing well or not. So I think the future is really hard to tell. It's not going to fall into this 4-year pattern anymore. It's going to fall into like what's ready to run and where is money going into. So I think Illuvium really opened people's eyes. Their development, their tests, like their alpha or beta tests on these, were farther ahead than I thought they would be, and run really, really smooth. I'm excited about where projects like Illuvium are going and other projects that will be coming out in that space. So blockchain gaming, which in the future won't be called blockchain gaming, it'll just be called gaming, and you'll be able to own your assets, which is what the blockchain makes possible. So I'm excited for that. Yeah, I guess that's a wrap from the picks that we have.
Great
Paul,
stuff.
thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
All right. See you later.
See you.
I did want to mention, so if you have something that you want me to review, yeah, put it in the comments section below, up to 2 that I can look at. Now, I want to share with you a thought on what I'm looking for in those. I had one person that wrote and asked me to look at something, and there was just some flaws in his thinking. And I wanted to share that because this isn't what I'm looking for. And I didn't even cover his pick. And so I'll read it to you. It said, can we get an update on Freeway Token? You shilled it to your audience for a long time, dude. A lot of people lost money because of your videos. An update is needed. First of all, was he trying to make me feel guilty? That doesn't work with me. I was married to somebody for 10 years that got divorced with her because she would use guilt to try to drive people. Number one, I don't shill anything to anybody. I cover what I'm interested in. Did I lose money on Freeway Token? Well, you only lose money if you sell. But I did sell some, so I did lose money on Freeway Token, and I probably lost more than any of the audience members. Now, I didn't sell all of it. I sold 60% of my token when a catastrophic event happened. And this is the risk that we take in crypto, that catastrophic events happen. So if he's thinking that, number one, he only bought it because I covered it, number one, he needs to address things himself and take responsibility for his decisions. I covered it because I like it, because I thought the project had an amazing basis and had some risks. And guess what? Some of those risks went badly, at least for the short term. Now, there's a lot that's happening that's good, but I won't specifically cover Freeway Token on this because that's not the way to get me to cover things. I did respond to him, and I told him if he wants to ask nicely and not with a victim mindset, then I would be happy to cover it and give an update. So, but there was a catastrophic event that had me extremely concerned and had a lot of other people extremely concerned. And that's why the price dropped by like 90%. And there were strong reasons to be concerned. The team has been addressing that stuff and hopefully is turning around, because part of the concern was always, is their trading algorithm legit? And when that happened, it really threw that into question. Is it legit? There were supposed to be some mechanisms that prevented a catastrophic event like that happening, and yet those mechanisms supposedly failed. Well, that created a loss, and then they canceled the ability to withdraw funds or to sell your superchargers back, which is needed to withdraw funds. And so, especially after so many other platforms had frozen withdrawals and then went into bankruptcy, most users, even myself, were strongly concerned. So for a further update on the price and the token and the project, ask nicely and I'll get to it. What I'm not looking for is an audience of victim mindset people. Look, I do cover stuff. I cover lots of projects. I screen heavily for what is advertised. What I say no to 99% of projects that reach out to me. I get a lot of offers to put stuff on Twitter. I don't take any advertising on Twitter whatsoever because it's too hard to disclose. If I do have a sponsorship, I disclose it. If I have a strategic relationship, I disclose it. They are rare because I say no all the time. All the other stuff is stuff I cover because I'm interested as an investor. But put your big boy pants on, because we're not little victims here. Some things we invest in are going to fail. Are you then going to blame somebody? Are you going to blame the exchange that listed the token because if you hadn't listed the token on it, I couldn't have bought it? Come on. Grab a pair. Really? This is the language of victim mindset people, not the language of business. When I find the people that go into victimhood, they never make good money in their lives because they don't take responsibility for things. And if you don't take responsibility for things, you never learn lessons. And in order to become a good investor, you have to learn a lot of the lessons. And it's good investors that over time make incredible money. Yes, a few people get lucky. But look, if you're going to rely on luck to get rich, you might as well go to the casino. In fact, in crypto investing, if you're just relying on luck, then you are essentially at the casino. There's going to be a ton of projects that fail. Here's how I think about as an investor. I research for good teams, a good narrative. I try to buy at good timing, and then I wait to see how it plays out. And sometimes plays out pretty good. Sometimes it plays out really good. And sometimes the project completely fails. Sometimes the project looks like it's going to fail, and then it succeeds. Now, how is that going to be with Freeway Token? Well, obviously, I hope it's one of the first two. But at this point, we don't know, do we? That's with a lot of these projects. Now, specifically, I'm invested in a lot of high-risk altcoins now, and I cover them, and I cover why I invest in them. And so, look, invest at your own risk. I'm an investor myself. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm an investor. I cover stuff that I'm interested in, and I share with you my reasons why. And that's the goal of this channel, is to help more people think like investors. And the type of words you're using tells me you're very far from that now. Come on. Expect more of yourself, because I expect more of you. Otherwise, I did tell him to go to the Telegram community because that's been discussed a lot there. But I said if he jumps in there and addresses things like he addressed in that question, he will get kicked from the community. Though if he gets in there and he asks really nicely, he'll probably get some great answers. Well, that's all I have for today. That was my rant. Yeah, come on. We're big boys here and big girls. The crypto market is slow right now. Some projects are way, way down. That happens. I don't have a magic crystal ball. If you thought that was the case, I say all the time that's not. I don't know why you thought that. Just know that good decisions made during these pullbacks lead to life-changing ones when the market does turn around, and it will turn around. This wrap is for all of you to reinforce the principles that I share on a weekly basis. Thanks so much, guys. See you soon.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, You buy before you could, was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss, cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong could soon become a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.